Hey, everybody. It's Tuesday night, time to get back to business. I'm going to be here tonight talking with Kristine Ireland, but before I do that, of course, I'm going to be reminding you of a couple things and making a few announcements. So, the redistricting has taken place, and so if you are involved in community action, politics, whatever, I'm sure you may be aware of this, but redistricting is done every 10 years. And so your house and your state house and Senate districts that you live in have changed, probably, maybe. For many, many people, they have changed. Also, we have a new congressional district. So, with the new census and our population and the redrawing of all the lines, we gained a seat in Congress. So, we have an eighth congressional seat, which is going to be a brand new congressional seat that we're going to have now. So there's a lot going on. I just want to remind you, if you haven't already looked it up, you can go to Colorado Redistricting website, and there's a link there for the maps, and you can see the interactive maps for not only the congressional districts, but the Colorado State House and Senate districts. You can find out where you live and what you're going to be doing, and get in touch with other people in your same district and get involved as we move into the 2022 election year. Also, always want to remind you to go to Justify, JUSTDEFY.org. Click on that page that says Small Donor Committee, and please donate that $50. It's a one-time annual donation of $50, and it goes to help candidates who support our mission, which is basically candidates who refute socialism, protect our Constitution, appreciate and support freedom, individual liberty, support our businesses, our economic stability, and all of those types of things. So please check out the website, register there for more information, and hit that donation tab on the Small Donor Committee. So anyway, tonight we are going to be talking a little bit about last week we talked with Mayor Greg Mills from Brighton, and he talked a little bit about community involvement in local government. And tonight I wanted to sort of continue on that theme, but talk a little bit about just campaigning and what it's like to campaign and different ways that people campaign. And so Kristine Ireland is with us. She ran for city council in Westminster this year. And Kristine ran what I would consider a no frills campaign in terms of financial contributions and things like that. So I just want to introduce her, and we'll ask her a few questions about this and just kind of talk about all the different levels of candidacies and some of the things you can do to boost a candidacy without a lot of money. So, hi, Kristine.
Hi, Cynthia. Thanks for having me.
Yep, thanks for being on with us. So, Kristine, can you tell everybody a little bit about what drove you to run for city council in Westminster?
Um, well, I started attending city council meetings probably back in 2016, and there was a lot of upheaval about taking over our garbage and having it taken over by our city. And in Westminster, we have had a great deal with garbage, like putting out all your grass or whatever you need to do. And so that upset people. So I started going because of that. And then I went when they decided they wanted to raise our water rates and spoke about what it was going to do to our city in 2018. And just the reaction that my husband and I got when we spoke told me that they were not listening, that they had an agenda, and they did not care what it was going to do to our citizens in our city. And I was pretty dang upset. And I came home and I thought, what can I do? But at that point, no one else was that upset. I mean, the room was full. but we didn't have a huge backing of what to do anything about it. But by 2020, during COVID, everyone was home. It was a dry year. Our water bills were skyrocketing. And my friend and I, my neighbor, decided this was a time that we could maybe make a difference. People were getting upset along with us. And so we decided we would try to recall those that kept raising our water rates. And so that was the beginning of my campaign. I wasn't planning on running for city council, but there was 4 seats available, and those that felt about water rates like me, there was only 3 of us that were running. And so I stepped in the ring late in the game towards the end of August of this year. So I didn't have a ton of time to campaign, but I feel like I was campaigning for over a year doing our water recall.
Right, right. And so, just a little backstory if people don't know it, in Westminster, a few years ago, there were water rate hikes that constituted, was it about a 300% hike or something, Kristine?
Well, they told us it was going to be a 10% hike, and my husband and I knew it was different than that. That wasn't being truthful. Ours was more like 70% over 3 years, and the sewer rates are even worse, honestly. So when you look at your neighbor next door, Broomfield has 329 per 1,000 gallons, and we're at our high tier at 1288 per 1,000.
Oh my gosh.
It makes a huge difference.
That's 4 times as much as them almost.
Yes, and to the quality of taking care of your landscape. I mean, I walked these neighborhoods for over a year and saw how people had just given up hope
Yeah.
of ever having a nice place again. And it made me so upset because it was people on fixed incomes who cannot afford food or their medication or just had to shut off their water for their lawn and so I didn't do it just necessarily for me. I did it because I saw our city was just being destroyed by the water rates.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, this is the kind of the theme I want to talk about with getting involved in local government. We talked a little bit about this with Craig last week, is that, a good majority of folks who end up getting involved in local government are people who see something wrong and they realize, if I don't step up, who is going to, And the recall efforts that happened in Westminster, of course, took a tremendous amount of work from a large group of people over a long period of time. And they weren't quite as fruitful as they had hoped with some aspects, but they did produce some recalls. And I think overall, the movement produced a great amount of awareness and potential change in the city.
Exactly.
So, there's a lot of other people I know this year, and I helped people who were on running for school board in different areas and that type of thing, who really didn't get in their race until the end of August. You weren't the only one who did that.
Right.
But I think, what's really important is what you were saying, is that you had really been so active prior to that. You had been attending city council meetings. You had become someone who was known to be concerned community member. You had been, in essence, campaigning by being part of the recall effort and being out in the community in front of other people saying enough is enough. Can you tell us a little bit in total, how much did your campaign spend?
I spent $1,700. Of course, my husband is really good at IT stuff, so he did my website. So I'm sure if I had to pay somebody to do what my husband did, it would have cost a little bit more than that. But luckily, I married a really intelligent guy who knows how to make, the most of the money I had. So he
Right.
he designed signs for me and found the best prices and helped out a lot.
Yeah. And, so the other backside to all this that people need to know is that there were 9 people running for city council in Westminster this year. It was completely insane, not including the mayoral race. So for the city council positions alone, 9 people were running, and I think next to the person who came in a little bit ahead of you, you were what, I mean, less than 100 votes. Wasn't it a difference of just a few votes?
I don't really know what the exact total was because at the end it changed like overnight the next day after the campaign. Sarah, who overtook Bruce Baker, and I had got way more votes, and I hadn't even got any by noon. So I don't even know what the total was, to tell you the truth,
At the very end.
at the very end. But I know that I exceeded most people's expectations for sure.
Yeah. Well, I watched it pretty closely, and it was only a couple votes difference. And I think that, you know, it just, one of the things I want to kind of encourage people to realize is that you don't have to have 20,000, 30,000, $40,000 to go out and necessarily launch a campaign um, for a local government position. There are a lot of things that you can do to save money around, you know, uh, having friends and family help people who have talents like a website or stuff. And nowadays, websites and things like that, I mean, they have so many different options for build your own types of things that you don't even really have to pay a lot of people to do those types of
Right.
things. But I think the thing that saves money, and what I saw with your race and some other people this year, was that they had a presence. You already had a presence in your community. And that's a really important piece of it. Um,
Well, I
so
have to
just
say, yeah, from the water recall, I sat in every part of our city and knew the problems and concerns of the people of that area. So
mhm.
that helped a lot.
Because people already saw you as a resource. And so it was a natural move for you to say, I'm willing to step up and run for city council and try to help resolve this on that next level, beyond just, being involved in the community or engaging in the community, and the recall or whatever it might be. Um, I like to just dispel myths for people sometimes because
Okay.
unfortunately, it's really hard to find people who will step up and run for office, whether it be at a city council position, school board position, or even a state house representative or something like that. And to be honest with you, there's not a, I mean, there is some difference in terms of the type of position that you're running for between, let's say, something like city council and state house representative, but ultimately the process is pretty much the same. And one of the things I think a lot of people feel like is, oh, I can't do that. I don't have experience in politics, or um, whatever their trepidation might be. Can you talk a little bit about just what it was like to be a candidate, and what made you overcome that potential trepidation, that type of thing?
Um, it's not something I ever aspired to. I have to say that, but I realized if I wasn't going to do it, who was? I had that attitude. So, um, and our water warriors had come this far, and there was still so much to do. I mean, along the way we uncovered so much corruption in our city that it wasn't just about water. It
Yeah.
was it was about taking our city back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I didn't see anyone else wanting to step up, and I knew a lot of people along the way. I made friends from the city water recall all over the city, so that helped me a lot because I could turn to them to help me for my campaign because our
Hmm.
city is large. I mean, square footage wise, it takes an hour and a half just to drive around the entire city.
Yeah.
And if we had wards, it would be much simpler to, you know, run a campaign because you're not having to be concerned about all the problems of the entire city. And the resources could go a little further, feel like. But lucky for me, I made friends all over the city, so that helped me a lot.
Well, I think, them looking at developing wards for city council in Westminster is probably something that a lot of people would hope or, hope would happen. I know I live in Thornton and we have wards, and so you have to live in and be elected in your ward. And I'll tell you what, um, we have a really nice system in Thornton. It works well. You have two people in each ward. One person is elected every 2 years for a ward, and they represent not only that ward but the whole entire city once they're in. But it's it makes it a much more manageable type of situation. We're probably comparable in size to Westminster. I'm not sure if our population is just slightly bigger, but it's pretty close to Westminster. And the thought of having to run at large in a city that big is it's a little bit daunting, I think,
It is
sometimes.
daunting, and also after you are seated, it is daunting because there is so many things that you have to um, be engaged and figure out, and what's best for you know areas of the city that you have no idea about until you are running for office, or you're involved in a recall. Then people are talking to you about what they're experiencing. But I think it's someone that hadn't had the experience I had for over a year would have no clue what, having to have that large of area, because our city is diverse. It's not, you know, not cookie cutter everywhere. It's a lot of different problems, a lot of different concerns. So
Yeah. Well, I was raised in Westminster, and that city has grown tremendously over the years. And it is a large city. It crosses two counties. It's spread out over quite a distance from north to south, east to west. There's a lot of varying different groups of people, everything from socioeconomic status to backgrounds there, and certainly age as well, because you have a lot of areas that are new and upcoming with younger families. But that city has been around for quite some time, and parts of it are house to a lot of lifetime residents who are older residents as well. And I think that was one of the things that, as I was looking as kind of a now outsider of Westminster, is just the damage that the water rates and things like that were doing to some of the elderly that couldn't afford to make the decision between that and, like you said, groceries or something. And that can be really motivating when you see people suffering, to step up and help. So
exactly. And if I didn't do anything, it was not going to get better. It was going to get even worse because those same people, but luckily we were able to not elect again. We're planning on bigger and more increases, and it was just not sustainable for our city.
yeah. And I think, the culture this year over there in Westminster of people getting involved just helped so much because um, I feel like this last year there was kind of an awakening in a lot of places over the country. And, when I talk about no frills campaigns, I mean, we look at, I mean, national news showed us in New Jersey, truck drivers running, campaigns on a shoestring and beating incumbents and that type of thing. And I think, um, we had the right, kind of almost the perfect storm for this to be the time. And I'm hoping that 2022 will be the same way, to see a lot of people who have never thought to themselves before, hey, that they were going to be involved in politics, standing up and saying, damn it, if I don't stand up and do something, who is? And we have to be the change that we want to see. And I say that all the time. You have to be the change that you want to see. And I think level-headed, common sense kind of people, um, for many years, they've been working, trying to pay bills, make ends meet, raise their families, and they just kind of had their heads down, and they haven't realized that around them there's so many different extreme political views going on, and that there seems to be a faction of the country who have kind of, what I would say, gone off the deep end, in terms of the politics and the attack on, everything from civil liberty to our businesses, and so on. And people are like, hey, wait a minute, what? Whoa, I've had my head down working this whole time, but man, I better lift my head up, because something's going wrong here. And I think that's bringing forward more and more people who have, like you said, I never aspired to it, I never thought I would do this, but here you found yourself doing it. So what's your plan now? I'm assuming that some of your, um, people who were sympathetic to what was going on, and I know there were a couple other candidates, like Kathleen Dodaro and stuff, who didn't get in, who but worked on the Water Warriors and helped with a lot of things. Are you guys still going to be collaborating? Are you going to be sitting on a board or a commission? And what are you going to be doing now that the campaigning is over and the seats are kind of, filled, and hopefully there's going to be some new direction?
Well, that's what I plan on doing. My friends and I are keeping an eye on what is going on at City Council to make sure that they are listening to what we were trying to accomplish and to get rid of this corruption that is in our city. So I've been listening to every City Council meeting. I went to the planning session meetings. I went to the planning meeting for Uplands and for everything since I was not elected. I've still tuned in and made sure that I'm abreast of what is going on. Um, Unfortunately, three of our city council will be up for election in 2 years, and I don't know if they all want to run again. So I might be there again. I don't. I will find out from them how much they're enjoying that, and if they still want to continue, which is fine. But if not, I might have to step up again.
And that's awesome. And I love to see that. I don't, a lot of people know my story. I started off last year running for office, and not really getting past that primary, but it was just the motivation, that I decided, that's not going to be the end of my involvement, because you can't just step up for a little while and say, oh, I want to do this and I want to fix things. And then if things don't go exactly right, because politics is it's a tough arena, and there's a lot to deal with. And really, what I tell people all the time is, it is a marathon, it is not a sprint, to get where we have to go. And if people like yourselves, who maybe this time you didn't end up serving on council, but darn good and well that it could be just a matter of 2 years before seats are up again, and some level-headed people need to get in there, and things need to continue to change, holding that council that was elected this year accountable to the people. Our government was based on the notion that common everyday people would step up and serve for some periods of time in government and then return to the community. It never was really supposed to be where you became a politician, forever and ever, and you kept doing that till you were 999 years old.
And millions and millions of dollars doing it.
Yes. And it was never meant to make people millionaires or
Right,
billionaires.
exactly.
um, which just points to the corruption even more. So we know if you enter office with no money and you leave office with billions of dollars, and your salary is
It's 1,300 a month.
yeah, then there's a problem. So that's even more reason why people like us need to stay on watch.
That kind of
And
concerns me about how much they spend to get in there too. I mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
another that was another concern of mine, and that's what I ran on is, no, I'm not taking big money from developers or whoever else because I don't want to have to feel like I have to give them any favors.
yeah, yeah. Well, and unfortunately, that is the case in a lot of cases, all the way from obviously city councils on up to, the Nancy Pelosi's of the world. But I think that's a good message, and I think it's a message a lot of people are interested in now that are starting to get involved, is that they see even just the corruption in the process of running for office and getting in and that type of thing. And so I'm hoping that we're going to see more and more of the tide change, and a shift into um, people wanting to serve rather than be served by being in office. Well, I hope in Westminster you guys are able to keep your eye on them over there, and keep them accountable to the
Right.
people. Um, and, this is why I wanted to continue this week to talk about stepping up, running for office, being regularly involved in the government, of just your local area. People forget how much of our lives are dictated and mandated by local government, our city councils, our county commissioners. Those seats are super important. And if any year was going to prove that, year or two, the last 2 years would prove that. I mean, some of the biggest political shifts we've seen, and controversies and challenges, have been with school boards and county commissioners and things like that over the last 2 years, with regard to the infringement and, onto businesses, and infringement on civil liberties and things like that. And it's really, I think, brought a spotlight to show people how important it is to understand those local arms of government and what their impact is.
And I don't think people do until they're in pain. So then they realize, and there's a lot of, you know, suffering, and that wakes people up. Unfortunately, it takes that sometimes, and
Yeah.
but I wish it didn't.
Yeah, I wish didn't have to get that bad either, but you know what? Um, I'm at least happy when it does cause someone enough discomfort that they're willing to step up and do something about it. And especially when groups of people like you guys had in Westminster come together and say, enough is enough. This is enough. So, well, um, I just want to say thanks for running, and thanks for being willing to potentially do that again in a couple years. I'm sure that you and some of the other folks who have been keeping an eye on it over there in Westminster will continue to keep them in check, as they go
Well,
into the
we're
next.
trying.
Yeah, it's not easy all the time.
No, it's a lot of
Even
work.
even good people, well-intentioned people, I think sometimes once they get into office can get a little bit worn down, um, and lose their way, and lose sight of what's important. And so that's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. I mean, I think we see it a lot of times with people where they campaign on a certain platform, and they profess to support certain values, and then when they get in office, oh, excuse me, somehow they lose sight of that. And hopefully, that won't be the case over there. You'll have some people who will stay on target, or be true to what it is they say that they're going to do. But again, community accountability is what keeps people accountable, is people watching, eyes on you. you know um, it's easier to I think, lose your way when no one is paying attention.
Exactly.
So, well, Kristine, thanks for coming on with me tonight. I appreciate it. This is just, you guys, everybody out there, please just know you don't have to be a politician. You don't have to have some sort of special background of experience. What it takes to be in local government or to run for office, whether even if it's at the state level, whatever level, is a conviction to serve your community and to implement laws, rules, legislation, whatever it might be, that are favorable to the people and to serve the people. And with those convictions, a lot of what you need to actually sit in a seat can be learned. And really, it is about people stepping up and making sure that we're holding our public officials accountable to the community and to serve the community's interest over their own interest. So, if you are frustrated about something, if you see a need, whatever it is, get out there like Kristine and her friends did. Fight for something that's important to you, and step up and serve for office. You don't have to have $1 million or anything special. You can make a difference by just making that move. So. Anyway, as a reminder, one more last time, don't forget to go to Just Defy, JUSTDEFY, click on the small donor committee tab, donate that $50. I mean, that's less than most people would spend going out to dinner for a couple people. And that money will go toward candidates to help get candidates into office who do want to serve and want to help their communities by being a true representative. Again, lots of changes in redistricting, so find out where you are. If you ever have any questions about how to get involved and you don't know anywhere else to go, well, reach out to me. Send me a message through Facebook or register on my website and say, hey, who do I talk to get involved? And I would be more than happy to direct you. It doesn't matter what county you live in or where you are. I will commit to getting you connected to some people that can help get you involved in your community and your local government. So just reach out when you do that, and watch for events on the website. And we will look forward to seeing you guys next week with a new topic. So thanks, Kristine.
Thank you. Good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.